Welcome back to the Contacts Coaching Podcast. We got the OG, Eddie Wilson, back on the pod, athletic director, basketball coach 2.0 at Fairfield High School. Coach, it's good to see you again. Welcome back.
It's great to be here, man. Thanks. OG, that's making me. I'm already looking at myself with the gray and the beard, and then he called me OG. He's like, thought I was still young in the game.
You're not, but the OG is. We are on episode number 171 today with you, and you were one of the first 8. So I don't remember exactly what number, but I do remember it was one of the first 8. So we're going way back in the time.
I do remember that it was not as low as it should have been, in my opinion. I do recall that. But yeah, man, you're doing a great job, and I hope the community appreciates you, man. It's awesome content.
All right, well, let's dive in. We're going to forego our traditional slate and just chop it up back and forth a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about what we were just talking about off camera in regards to unplanned circumstances during a year, be it from a coaching standpoint, be it from an athlete standpoint, be it from an administrative standpoint. Give us a little bit of what you're dealing with right now and how you have learned in year 24 of our coaching and teaching lives how to process these things a little bit differently than we once would have.
Yeah, I think that's obviously it's a hot topic for us right here on our campus. We just lost a kid to an ACL. I think the first thing I would say is that we're talking about high school athletics, and the unexpected should be expected. Oftentimes, like I don't think you know the total circumstances, but there's always going to be something that derails the plans, whether it's academic, injury, family situations. There seems to be more often than not, obstacles that we have to overcome. So, when we talk about just generally speaking, I think preparing yourself as best you can to deal with unforeseen circumstances. So developing your talent the best you can, making players out of guys maybe that aren't players, having people ready to fill roles maybe that you don't really want them to fill but may need to be filled at some point. From a coaching perspective, I think it's about having some versatility in your game plans and your structure, your off-season approach to what your team's gonna be, still keeping in mind if this happens or if that happens. And again, there's some things you just can't really completely prepare for, but at least having some sort of a backup plan. So right now I was telling you, we lost a guy that's really, really important to us, and it's not so much from a statistical standpoint, because I think a lot of his numbers are replaceable. It was more of the intangible things and the passion and that he approached the game with, and his desire to be successful. And so like sometimes those things are going to be more difficult to replace. We were talking about we try really hard to develop leadership skills here on our campus. We have leadership programs in place, and within our individual teams, we try to develop leaders, and that's hard sometimes. And now we're looking at a situation where we're taking kids and we're moving them from one role to another, and they're struggling a little bit. Not X and O, not skill wise, but I think more from an intangible perspective and being leaders and understanding the coach and what the coach wants and things of the sort. So, like I said, generally speaking, it's tough, but it's a reality of high school sports, I think, because, a lot of your programs are going to lack, significant depth. You're going to be good in some spots and not in others. And then when you lose one, there's a tremendous domino effect. And that's kind of what we're doing right now. We still think we have a chance to be good. We had really high expectations. I'm trying to sell my kids right now that they can continue to believe in those expectations, but it's going to require some significant changes. So we're trying to implement those changes as a staff. And, now we're having to play around with some different scenarios and look at different lineups and different philosophies offensively and defensively. And that's our job as coaches, is to try to put kids in positions to be successful. but it's going to take our kids to be willing to change a little bit. That guy that understands, that doesn't want to talk very often, like, we need him to talk now. He's got to talk a little bit more. And that the kid that was kind of inconsistent, was good one day and not the next, like, we got to find a level of consistency from him. And so, and we've approached it from a holistic perspective, like really trying to get the team to buy into the team dynamics. And now this week we're going to attack it a little bit more individually with sit downs and like, here's what we need very specifically from you, with hopes that some kids can respond and allow us to be what we wanted to be.
I want to pivot from that to what we were talking about a little bit beforehand, about the comment that was made by the mom when you delivered the news, and the way in which you approached each kid in the locker room after getting the news. Because I think X's and O's are fine, right? The strategy piece of coaching is what it is. But you mentioned a couple things in regards to culture, guys, right? In regards to how you navigate the adversity. And some things are popping up now that, again, when we were 24 years old doing this, it would have been like, next man up, let's go. And how's your perspective changed? Share that question, share how you handled that in regards to just like, keeping the main thing at this point in our lives.
Yeah. Again, man, first of all, I wasn't 24. It was more like, was it 24? I feel like it was like a little bit younger than that. If it wasn't 24, there was no way I had the maturity of what a 24-year-old is supposed to have.
Yeah, you were 22, I think. You were 22.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, when you're motivated and you kind of have a win at all costs type of mentality. You said next man up, which I think is great, but we would try to like make the kid play still. You know what I mean? Like, tore an ACL, let's go wrap it up. Like, what are we doing? I don't understand what the problem is. I think you're referencing, we had difficult conversations with the family, who wasn't fully understanding what exactly the doctors were telling them. And then when we reached out to the kids, let the kids know, it was a team meeting, and it was like, hey, we lost him. He's done for the year. And it was really, really tough. They handled it really well, I thought, but there was definitely more emotions than I had expected. And so walking around talking to the kids individually after the group session, it was kind of like, I asked them to explain their emotions to me. Like, why is it that you look as distraught as you do? Why, or why is it that you have tears in your eyes right now? Like, tell me your feelings. And all of them acknowledged just feeling really bad for the kid. And I think it has a lot to do with the kid and just who he is, and his investment, his commitment. And he just really cares about our school and our program, and he cared about winning. And we've been paying a price. We've been struggling a little bit the last couple of years, and again, we had really high expectations. But all of the kids acknowledging that they felt bad for him made me really proud. It wasn't about like, oh, now we're going to struggle, or, oh no, now I have to play the point, or you know what I mean, or now how am I going to get shots? Like, it was, I feel bad for him that's how it ended for him. He's probably not a college basketball player, maybe, I don't know, but circumstances were right. But I mean, to have it just be taken from you like that. So I think when you talk about when we were younger, I don't know that I'd have felt bad for a kid, and we'd have, like you said, just plug and play. But now it was really, really important to me that the kids had a greater perspective and didn't immediately become selfish. And there might have been some of those thoughts as well, but none of those were verbalized. And now there's definitely a level of frustration right now, as everybody's trying to figure out how we can still exist and still be what we want to be. But I genuinely believe that all of their concern, all of their heart was with him. And we're talking about a sports injury. You know what I mean? Like, that's the other thing that we keep talking about the guys. Like, we're talking about sports injury. Like, the worst thing that happens to you in life is you tore an ACL when you're 17. You know what I mean? I'm guessing you probably lived a really good life. So keeping things in perspective, and it's just tough, because and you're a lot like me, but we put so much into it, and we demand that the kids put so much into it, and then just to have it taken. So the lesson, I think, for all of us is I know I told our kids as well, is appreciate the moments and live in the present and, do everything you can to be committed to your future. But understand, like, the only thing we really have any control over is, the things that are happening like immediately, right? So get the most out of it. And I think he did. That kid got the most out of himself and he got the most out of his experiences. It's just sad that it was short, but I thought it was great for our kids to acknowledge what was really important, and that was him and his well-being.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think going back to my always joking reference with you about what once was, um, we would have definitely been there sincerely for the kid and the family, but none of that was detracting from what we were trying to accomplish. Where for now, it's like, keep the main thing, which is the kid's social and emotional well-being, right? And his health and the team's ability to emote and process that and have structures in place before you get to that point. When you talk about culture and being in the vans and doing things where you're building something to fall back on when these things happen. I think that's the difference of what is more important these days, not just for us. I think just as we acknowledge, we want to keep student athletes at the center of the equation. I think it's really about, how you were able to navigate that based on the time you all have put in together that probably allowed it to land that way.
Well, and the other thing that I would add to that, if you don't mind, is that I think, now it's really important for me to keep this kid engaged too, right? Like we're getting polos, you know what I mean? Like he's going to be a coach, like that's his role now, and having him continue to be involved. The other day we were running, sets versus transition stuff, and he was the one giving the team running sets. He was calling their sets for them, so like, and that was really important to me. Like I needed to keep him engaged because he just cared so much, and I didn't want him to feel like now he's no longer part of it. I think when I was younger, and I'm sure you probably nod your head here, is that it'd have been like, all right, sorry, you can't play anymore. Like now you're maybe could be a distraction. How about you just find a way to go find something else to do? And so now, that I think that would, kind of maybe represent some of the growth for us immediately. Like, what are we gonna do for this kid? How do we keep this kid happy in his senior year? And I think that speaks, globally to just some of the newer challenges in this profession. It's not, we used to just be able to just show up and coach. And now there's so much more with the mental health and, just a lot of our kids and all of us have different circumstances. I know that, but these kids need so much more than just a guy to tell them where to be, in transition. So.
Absolutely. You brought something up right there at the end that was probably unintentional, but about keeping players involved. And I know that I've gone through many iterations of building rosters and figuring out who to keep or not to keep. And there's reasons that, in every school community, there's value add to, extending an opportunity to a kid that maybe isn't normally going to be on the team. And I also am curious what your thoughts are on that over the years as the athletic director and as a coach, where you're watching these teams build rosters and maybe there's a kid on the fringe and it's like, the heartless youth of like, yeah, man, you're not good enough, go away, versus like, you know what? This kid has one chance to be part of something. And as long as they can understand role and stay within those boundaries, it actually benefits everybody. Or hell, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just benefits that kid. Talk a little bit about how you've seen that throughout your programs, both as the AD and the value you now put on that versus like, yo, just give me the best 12.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And philosophically, that's something that's really important to us here at Fairfield High School. We want as many participants as possible, and that's not going to be easy in some of your cut sports. Like boys basketball, Fairfield High is a cut sport. Like we have to cut guys. We're trying to find ways to keep as many people as possible. And oftentimes, when you talk about fringe guys, it's not necessarily a talent thing. Maybe it's a commitment thing. Maybe it's they're not so reliable academically or whatever the cases may be. We're trying to impact as many kids as we can impact. And, we talk about that sometimes, like it used to be, and I think you and I have talked about this before, but my mentality as a coach used to be program, team, player. in that order. Like all the decisions that we made, what was the best decision for the program? Then we'd filter down to, is this the best decision for a particular team? And then it was like, what's best for the kid, right? I think that's flipped now. And maybe that has more to do with my role as an administrator or maybe my experiences as a parent. But now we are mostly concerned with the individual player and what's best for that player, right? And so when you talk about cut, keep, if we can impact a kid's life in one way or another, we're going to try to do that. And so we've implemented that philosophy in all of our sports. We had a really good football year this year. I've got a coach that is a stud, and he's reinvigorated the program, and he had a couple of those guys this year where it was like they weren't going to add much value to the actual team. As a matter of fact, sometimes their contributions to the team were negative from a behavioral standpoint on campus, or from the things that were going on in their own lives that were detracting from the team. But we talked about that multiple times, and he had bought into that idea. Like the time this kid is spending with the program may impact his life, and that's much more important to us than whether or not he impacts a first down, right? So I think when you talk about cutting versus keeping, again, number one, we want to try to keep as many as we can. But when we're in those situations where we do have to make cuts, it's not as easy as, like you said, like, your left hand's not good enough. You got to go. It's like sometimes we need that guy to stick around so we can help him be better as a student, help him be better as a citizen. Those things are really important to us. We talk a lot on campus about like trying to create a culture within our programs that is more focused on helping these kids develop into quality people than maybe them just being quality players. But I think oftentimes those two things are gonna coexist, because as you continue to develop character in people, I think the carrot is the athletics, and then you're gonna make them better players along the way. It's a win-win for everybody. So I think philosophically, again, like that's something that has to trickle down from the top, and then you gotta hire people that appreciate and support that sort of philosophy. And what we've done here recently, and I don't know if this is where you want to go with this, but I've been really, really proud of our hiring practices, and we've been able to hire people that are alum, people that are from our community, people that have dealt with a lot of the things that our kids are dealing with, that are sensitive to those things, and understand how to help them navigate too. And so, people are like, "Hey, is it intentional that you've got all these former players as coaches?" Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of them are on campus too. And it's like, so now we've got them teaching and coaching, and they were in, 12 years ago, they were in the same exact position that some of these players are, and so that they get it, and that's something I'm really, really proud of actually right now.
I'm taking a beat here because as I was listening, what I wanted to ask next changed, and then I lost it when you started talking about hiring, and so I got to come back to this. But let's stay on hiring for a second. Hopefully, it'll come back to me. I know every situation is different, public, private, the policies around posting jobs, etc. But one of the things that I've tried to do in my particular role is think about hiring kind of backwards in regards to more of a recruitment than a filtering of prospects. And I'm curious, over your time now as the AD, and heck, even back when we were just program leads, right? It's, hey, let me post a job and see what happens, versus, no, I'm going to go get the person that I want and get them to get engaged in the process. Can you just talk a little bit about how that's evolved over your career and the value of both prongs of the process, but also, how you best go find mission appropriate people for your school?
Uh, Hiring is tough, and again, you acknowledge everybody with different circumstances. So, we've been a struggling program. We're on the rise right now. Our athletic department for sure, but we've been struggling, and our facilities, our school is old. Our neighborhoods are old. We're not drawing, a young math teacher from the Bay Area who's wanting to get in, and coach. So, for us, what we've been doing, and I don't know that these are the, legal practices of the human resource department. This is just Coach Wilson. But there's definitely an effort
Don't get fired.
I say there's definitely an effort to recruit specific people to specific positions. We still go through and fly jobs on campus, right? Legally. We send them through the HR process, but we're working the phones, and we just I think part of it right now too for me has been that Fairfield High is a unique campus in my opinion. It's really, really student centered, and I don't know that's always the right move. You know what I mean? Like there's probably some times where we should be doing some things a little bit differently, but we just really care about our people. Um, and that I think is just kind of comes with the territory here. And there's people that come onto our campus that are from other places and are just blown away with like, we're willing to do some things maybe that other campuses aren't to ensure that our kids have opportunities. And so the people who go to school here, the kids who graduate and move on, and they have attachments to our campus that I don't know that a lot of schools have. The kids that are Fairfield kids, like that means something to them a lot of times. But so anyhow, for us, like there's been a really deliberate attempt to try to bring those people back in the classrooms and then within our athletic department as well. And then we've been fortunate the last couple of years to find people that wanted to do both. So, like again, to answer your question, I've stumbled across coaches too, just flying some stuff, and you score a tennis coach that you never even heard of and nobody even knew who this person was. And, the references were like, I didn't even know they coached tennis, stuff like that. And that person's been great for us. But we've also struggled to fill a lot of positions because I just don't think it's a destination site, you know what I mean? Yet, maybe. But anyways, so yeah, I think there's a lot of that. Like, okay, we're building programs. Like, where could we go? Oh, I know this kid's in the credentialing program. Like, maybe we can convince this kid to come back. Or, blah 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 has been floundering a little bit, but I know they got their degree. Let's get them over here. The hiring practices right now for teachers is, at least in the public school, and maybe just my area, but I think within our state and across the nation even. I mean, they're putting anybody in the classroom right now. If you got some desire and some background, let's give you a shot. Let's throw you in and see what happens. And we've had some success there. But we do want people that know our kids and know our community. So, we're definitely working the phones. We're trying to build a couple of programs right now. We have heads in place, and now we're trying to find, we need more. We need an OC, or we need a varsity assistant here or there. And it's, who do we know? Who kind of fits the mold? Can we get them in? Can we attract them to the business, I guess?
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I want to go back to something you said at the state conference last year where you were talking to the group, and it was, look, I'm more interested in finding somebody that's passionate, that cares about kids, that's willing to learn and grow and teach them how to coach, rather than find somebody that's on the other side of that. And I think what you just said echoes that, right? We'll take anybody. If you have any interest, you have any passion, and you want to be involved with kids, like we can teach you the other things. And I'm going through that right now with one of my coaches, where hired her as my assistant and AD, and needed somebody to help with the JV girls basketball program, 4-sport athlete in high school, softball, lacrosse, soccer, volleyball, played college softball. And I'm like, can you coach some JV basketball? And it's like, sure. And it's like most connected person with the kids. They sit in their office, right? It's like one of those things where now you're able to plant some seeds beyond maybe the technical skills and focus on the intangibles that you talked about earlier. Can you play hard? Are you coachable? Are you willing to see some vulnerability because you're learning alongside of each other? And I think, to your point, you got to find people that care. You got to find people that are invested. And the other stuff is a bonus, and you need somebody at the program lead that can kind of direct some of that things. But those other things are so much more important in my mind. So let's go here. as you search for coaches, AD's on the horn, listen up. Here's how we're going to chop this up. What are the qualities that you are looking for in hierarchical order, so to speak? And we can just ping them back and forth. If that's easier, we can kind of come up with a list of things that makes sense.
That's a great question. And so I don't think I'll be able to put them in order for you, but let's throw them out. Like, you acknowledge the thing that's most important to me. Like, do you care about kids? Like, are you willing to commit yourself to kids? And that part is hard, right? Find it, and oftentimes like, yeah, I like kids. Like, no. Are you willing to commit yourself to these kids? Like, some of these kids are gonna the amount of effort you're gonna put into them, it could exceed the amount of effort you're putting into your own kids' lives. Like, I can contest to that myself. Do you care about kids? Number one, are you passionate about athletics? So I like what you just said there. You got a kid who plays lacrosse and you're trying to make her a girls basketball coach. I've got a coach on campus right now who's an English teacher that has literally coached, I think, 7 sports, right? He'll coach anything. And all he wants to do is get in there and be with kids, right? And like, I'll figure this stuff out as I go. And I think you can get away with that in a lot of programs. I don't know that you want your head football coach to be somebody who's never played football, right? I mean, maybe, or who has no knowledge of the sport. Like, we can't do that in some sports.
Well, hold on. Let me press pause on that for a second, though. I agree when it comes to, I would say, the majority of your program leads. And I'll even go football as an example because I've joked all along. At some point in my life, there's a chance I'll be a head football coach. And it doesn't have anything to do with anything other than if circumstances aren't right in regards to finding somebody to fill that role, especially in that job, it's basically like being an AD. So as long as you surround yourself in football, right, you have an OC, you have a DC, and you're managing program and you have position coaches, right? I think there are ways in which to think through hiring from that standpoint, not just in football, but in other sports as well, right?
No, and I think I agree with that. So you're saying, like, if we've got somebody that can manage and delegate and deal with the administrative tasks, and we surround that person with quality football minds, we can get away. I would agree with that. I think the point I was trying to make is that you're going to have some programs where we just need a body in place, somebody who's going to care about character development, who's going to demand that the kids are committed and that they do the things they're supposed to do. And then, like, we can also teach you sport as we go along, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Because ultimately, hold on, because part of that, Ed, is what are we doing with athletics, right? And it's a vehicle to teach. Yeah. And so as long as we're looking at it from that perspective, right, then that has to be the focus of where our hiring's at.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I mean, student-centered, so you care about kids, you care about athletics, right? And then I think
let me jump.
That, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I would consider much criteria beyond that. Like, if I've got 5, 6 candidates, okay, now let's start getting into like a little bit more specific, tasks and knowledge base and experiences and whatever else. Do you care about kids? Do you care about athletics? Do you care about community? Right? You've got those things in place. The rest of it we can arrive at. I spent a year coaching badminton. Right? I didn't even know, like, I don't understand badminton. I still really don't. And it was like 10 minutes before practice, jump on YouTube and learn how to teach some sort of backstroke or something. You know what I mean? Backswing. And how do we smash, clear drop smash, whatever, right? And so literally 10 minutes before practice, and then go in and I'd run them through, some sort of dynamic warm up, and we talk about just like mobility and flexibility, and those are general athletic concepts. And we do some, and then it was, all right, here's this cool drill I saw on YouTube, and I go in and sell it like I knew what it was, right? And I mean, we were never any good, but that's not the point. The point was, if you're interested in learning, you can learn, right? But do you have the prerequisite, like, understanding of what high school sports are really supposed to be about? And can you deliver that on a daily basis? you can go coach a sport and you can find a level of success, I think. And to your point, and then if you can surround yourself with whatever your weaknesses might be, and you find people that can fill that, now you got a chance to be really, really successful. And I'm sure there's tons of people that could probably have some anecdotal evidence for that. Like hired this person to do this, and like, wow, they were really good at it, but not really. They just had some people that were able to help them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's always the challenging part, right? Both as a program lead and now as an administrator is how do you bring value adds to your campus in whatever role you can to get them around kids. And I get asked all the time by our HR person. And when people reach out, it's like, hey, do you have a need for coaches? It's like, yeah, what sport? All of them. Wait, what do you mean all of them? It's like, look, I believe in a 1-to-1 coach player ratio. So I'll take them all. If I can find somebody that's going to be a value add that may connect with this kid over here that I might not, and all of a sudden now you have that bond that's transformational for that kid, like, and bring them on, And so it's ultimately like, what's when you keep that as the center of the equation, right? All of a sudden you can find some people to impact your kids in a way that maybe you couldn't before if you weren't thinking that way, which leads me to my follow-up is where are some of the places that you have figured out how to mine for talent that maybe you once didn't consider? And I'll start with an example. So being on the Monterey Peninsula, we have 3 military installations in the Old Fort Ord, the Presidio, and the Naval Postgraduate School, and the Defense Language Institute. And so when I took over, my assistant and I were talking about, hey, should we reach out to the Naval Postgrad and see if they've got anybody? And I was kind of like, those guys are only going to be here for a year or two. I don't know if I want to have that inconsistency. And he pushed back. He's like, look, when I was playing, the guys we got from the military were the best coaches I had. And I'm like, all right, cool. That's all I need to hear. And I've got a running post in the daily muster at the Naval Postgraduate School that basically has my number. It says, if you're interested in coaching, please reach out. And I get 2 or 3 people a year, often former Naval Academy or West Point students that are looking to fill some time. And that has been a great outlet for us to add a piece here and there. We even had a head coach for a couple of years that was from there. Give me some of your thoughts.
Yeah, I would say I would echo that. So we're close to a military base. Travis Air Force Base is 2 or 3 miles down the road. So we have been able to secure some volunteer help from them. I agree with your concerns. Like they're typically going to be in and out in a couple of years. So I don't know that those are people you want to hire to be program leads, but definitely to jump in and volunteer. We've got some people volunteering our wrestling program right now, some track people. I was gonna, and I don't know that this is the answer you're looking for, but we found some interest in female coaches in male sports, and that's not I don't think that's normally a street that we've driven down before, but and I think it just kind of happened organically, but we found some interest from females, and they're interested in male sports, and we've given them a shot, and it's been awesome. It's been great for our kids too. We've got a former referee coaching one of our teams now. So it was just somebody I had a conversation with, and they decided the referee thing wasn't for him, and sent the email asking me about one of our programs, and it worked out where it was, he was able to fill a need for us, and it got him engaged in the sport like he wanted to be. So I don't know that we're as successful as we should be in terms of reaching out for coaches, and I think part of it is because, again, I'm just really in tune with trying to bring people that are super familiar with our campus. And that's been a priority for us. We've done the max preps thing, like soliciting coaching needs on max preps and on the CIF homes and things of the sort. And, get a resume from some guy in Alabama or something, or Michigan. And they're not really coming. I mean, if they did, that would be phenomenal. But it's more about parent groups too. I actually was leading a fall sport presentation, and they had a parent come up and like, hey, I appreciate some of the things you were saying. Like, I coach youth baseball. Are you in need of baseball coaches? And so sometimes those types of connections. He was a parent of a fall sport athlete, but he was interested in coaching a spring sport. We're looking to try to get that guy involved in a volunteer capacity. So, anyways, like I think that you just got to be. I don't know that like I said, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know that I do that very well. But I do know that I always try to represent what our program is about. And as a result of that, I think sometimes in informal conversations, those types of people that are drawn to that sort of atmosphere, the one that the circumstances that we're trying to function within, I think they're drawn. So, but I just immediately wrote down that you're posting stuff in newspapers and stuff. So we'll see if we can steal that idea.
Well, and I'll give a couple more, since I know you're always trying to grab things, and I know other people are as well. And this is something that, God, I want to say that I learned vicariously through Baxter, even though this wasn't something he really taught us. But, your net worth is your network, right? And so how are you using that to help your kids? And how are you constantly growing your network? And, I've joked the whole reason this podcast started and the reason it's called is, I always mess around with people and tell them, it's like, look, you look at my phone, I've got 4,000 contacts in the phone, named, numbered, everything. And at the end of the day, if you were like, yo, how many friends do you have? And zero. And it's like, I've got, and I joke because, to me, that's a different role than, say, an acquaintance or a colleague or a coaching peer. And I think there's transformational relationships that fall under that category. And then there's, ones that aren't transactional per se, but they're, hey, how can I help you, Eddie? And help you uplift your program because of some contact that I may have. Then I can speak to who you are and what your program's about. And so long segue to say, I think it's super important that you are looking at your area. So let's take Fairfield, for example. You got Travis Air Force Base. Okay. How do you get a post in their daily message that goes out to all officers specifically, right? Make sure you're minding that. And then what about your connection with Solano College and their athletic director, right? Hey, coach, who do you have that is a recent alum, right? Or even where we're at locally for you, excuse me, not us, but, UC Davis is 35 minutes away, right? And then you go the other direction and you got college campuses. How are you building a relationship with those athletic directors so that you can call them and be like, hey, I got this job opening. It's not just your traditional, stipended program lead, but it's like, no, we actually have an English job open. Who do you have that is an athlete that's graduating this year that maybe has a degree in English that's looking to land somewhere? And I can't tell you how important my relationship with Kirby Gary at CSUMB has been, how important my relationship with the athletic directors at Hartnell College and at Monterey Peninsula College have been. And I think those are things that we just, as our default, it's like you're going in your phone and you're looking to see who you have specifically for a job versus, wait, who's the hub of connectivity that's going to have greater reach? And how do I utilize that relationship to then find other people?
That's something that, and you and our relationship extends beyond this little podcast. So like, me, I struggle with that. I'm a little bit of an introvert, and in a lot of ways, and I keep really close company and not good, or don't provide maybe the necessary efforts that I need to be good in that, bigger political, contact type driven world. And I don't function in that capacity. I haven't. And I, right away I just like, man, why did I never think of that? Why did I never, I'm ignoring emails from the junior college AD sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, and so definitely an area of growth. I acknowge that. And I appreciate
let me throw a couple other things at you because I'm gonna push back. Yeah, you know what? Both of us are wired the same way. But to your point, you've been hesitant to expose yourself a little bit and do certain things, but that's not the case now. Is you're on the CSADA board, you're vice president of your section, you're a published author now with your little write-up in the freaking yellow magazine that we got about the conference. I don't know if you read
Oh my
it.
goodness.
And but let's
Did you read that? Were you impressed or what, man?
I
It
was,
took me
man. As you
took me
know,
like 7 minutes to write that.
as an English teacher, you were able to get the main points out really quickly. But I'm going to come back to that piece because I do want to get into what you've learned now, going outside your comfort zone and doing some of these things that you've always despised or steered away from. But I want to throw a couple more things out there. The youth sports industrial complex, in my opinion, is destroying education-based athletics. But at the same time, it has provided to where pretty much in every area in your major club sports, volleyball, polo, soccer, basketball, you now have enough programs where you can figure out, again, who is the hub of communication in said sport. So we've got a couple people locally that have been involved in club volleyball for 30 years in their whole lives. And another group that has popped up where one of the major board members in that actually runs our summer camp. And it's not about mining for players as much as like, hey, I need a volleyball coach. Who do you guys have coaching club that's young, that's hungry, that has a little free time? And it's those resources have been valuable as well. If you can figure out, right, who are like-minded club directors, right, that are mission appropriate for your school and can help steer you to some coaching opportunities, especially usually younger, passionate people that you're thinking about, even if you get them as assistants or lower level coaches or they work camp for you and you can kind of vet them a little bit. I think that's it. As high school people, the majority of us kind of look side-eyed at the club just because we don't like the system, not necessarily a particular club. And it's like, yo, how do you get past that? And I'm speaking you, but really, how did I get past that? And it's really just, you go find people that have mission appropriate alignment philosophies, and then they can steer you to people who would fit at your school. And so think through that one as well. Anything on that before we go to this association involvement that you've now developed?
No, I mean, I appreciate some of the things that you just said, and again, you've always challenged me. So thank you for that.
All right. So talk a little bit about how you have taken advantage of the offerings presented outside of your district and your school site level, and what that has done to shift your mentality of, I'm not into the politics, I'm not into X, Y, and Z. Why'd you get in? Like, how did you fall backwards into this role? Number one, because we both know that's what happened. Number two, how did you take the opportunity and now what have you learned being involved a little bit more each year? And not just, hey, get involved, the cliche, but no, actually, shoot, this was really helpful because it directly led to X just by being in this room.
I think, so I wanted to be an athletic director because I wanted to help coaches, right? So, I mean, I had been a coach for 10, 12 years, whatever, and like always felt like, I was on my own island. So it was, I wanted to be an athletic director so that I could connect the programs on my campus and try to help my coaches so that they can better help their students, right? So then when I got into the administrative stuff, I realized I really had no idea what that meant. Like, I don't even know what athletic directors do. Like, they schedule buses and get referees, right? Then there was nobody on my campus or in my district that could help me to understand more of the things that I was supposed to be doing or that I could have been doing, right? So then it was me trying to, okay, I want to implement, some sort of professional development for coaches. Okay, then it was me, like, I want to implement some sort of evaluation system for my coaches. And so I was creating my own things, right? And then it was, after spending some time at, different conferences or whatever, realizing that here I am, I'm trying to reinvent the wheel in a lot of cases, right? And so I think part of getting involved with other people was was selfish in nature in that I just wanted some people to help me do my job better, right? And then I started to realize like a lot of the things that I was doing, the other people weren't even doing yet. So then it was, all right, well, I feel pretty secure in what I've done. And now how can I get a little bit better and what can I get more involved in? So then I reached out and, like, hey, I know there's some different committees within our section. How can I get on the playoff committee or something, right? So then, oftentimes they're just looking for volunteers, and I wanted to break in and like be more involved and figure out other ways that I could make things better at my site. And then I got in a couple committees, and then just kind of grew from there. And then you start to realize, okay, it's like you just acknowledge your network and your net worth and the correlation there. And there was people now that I had a bigger, I guess I wasn't just a big fish in a small pond. Now the pond was bigger. There was people doing stuff a lot better than me, and like, wow, that makes a lot more sense. Why am I doing it this way? And so getting involved with the more experienced athletic directors, the ones that are a little bit more passionate about the job, and it's not just treating it like scheduling buses and referees, and like really trying to impact coaches and students. And the more you got connected with some of those people, the more they were trying to motivate you to do more, right? And that was one of the things, like, people say to me, like, well, now you're in year whatever 20 something as a coach, and you're in year whatever 12 or whatever it is as an athletic director, like, it's getting easier now, you have routines, right? Like, no, because I'm continually trying to do new things and trying to add to our programs. And so, yeah, my routine for professional development with my coaching staff or something, like, that's intact, and now I'm just rolling on that, right? But now I've added this other thing, and now we're trying to do this, and so um there was a need, and it was kind of like, hey, anybody interested? And so then I said I was interested in the VP role within the section, which I don't think I really understood. And then the CSADA thing, which definitely still don't understand. They keep sending me emails telling me I need to do things. That was not in the original agreement. But whatever. And the guys in the section are laughing at me like they duped me. You know what I mean? So like, you were right. It kind of just, I fell into the role. But again, now here we are, and I'm bumping elbows with some guy from the San Francisco city, and or from the section, and some people from the South. And you hear people and different perspectives and different experiences. And I think, and I'm curious to hear your response to this, but I mean, we are who we are, right? Like, I'm not going to have like these tremendous like 360 changes. It's not going to happen at this point. A, because I'm just a little bit stubborn, and B, like, I'm not really interested in that. But I can tweak some things, right? And there's like that one thing I can do a little bit different. And if that impacts other people, and then it's like, it's exponential. So I think that's what I've learned. And again, like, I don't know that I would have done that a while ago, because I've just really always been kind of in my place, and even when I was starting out in those committees, I just kind of was there. And I mean, I would offer my opinions when asked, but I wasn't aggressive to make too much of an impact. And so, like, I just kind of started to learn, like you said, man, like, got to be willing to offer your own thoughts, but more importantly, to be receptive. And I think I've always done that. I've always heard what other people say, and now it's impacting and trying to make some subtle changes.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's what's been great to watch on your path over these last few years, as you have expanded the way in which you're engaging outside of your immediate group. You said you're interested in hearing my thoughts on what?
I don't remember. I probably didn't really want to hear them. You know what I mean? Because normally you just make me feel bad. And then my wife goes, yeah, he's right. All
right. That's great. All right. Well, I got to spin back here. Give me a second. Because I had something else for you.
Can we talk about, do you have the Cali Cream hat on right now, man?
You better believe it. I wore it just for you, man.
That's awesome.
Looking forward to it when we go back down this year.
Yeah.
For those of you that aren't aware, free advertisement, Cali Cream in San Diego is a great ice cream spot. Last time we were in San Diego, we were walking around and Eddie and I went to ice cream and bought this hat. And so had it on for the pod specifically for today.
Try to promote. Maybe they can be a sponsor of the podcast.
Possibly. We'll see if Cali Cream can throw a little bit of sugar behind the podcast here. Let's do this, Ed. What questions do you have?
About
Tell me, man.
That's a teacher move right there. When you run out of material, you make the kids like start to come up with stuff. I've done that in class before. Who has a question for me? I think like I said, man, we've gone back a long way. So I'm curious, as you've interacted with, you said this is episode 171.
Yeah.
So we're looking at probably 120, 130 different people, maybe.
Oh, more than that. I mean, there's only been probably 6 people that have been on more than once.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, what are some of the biggest takeaways for you? What are the things that, and you, I think selflessly, because that's what type of guy you are. Like you're putting this out as helping the community, but I know that you're taking tons of notes and implementing tons of things. So I'm curious, what would you say some of the bigger takeaways from the podcast have been?
Well, interesting that you should ask. So you know that I'm presenting at the conference this year because, again, like you, somebody asked, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever.
No problem. Think that's going to be awesome, though, to be honest with you. And I tried to moderate it, and they weren't interested because I don't think they think we're mature enough to be.
I concur, and we have that in writing as well. But that's all good. And you're right. So this whole thing started during COVID, and it started from my hat as an AD, where I mentioned I'm getting coaches that are usually young. When you work at our school, you have to participate in a co-curricular. They may not have the background and network that you and I have, or the experience of, hey, how do I get better at X? And so I was like, you know what? I know a bunch of people. Let me just start recording episodes and making them available, so I could steer our coaches to, hey, you know what? You're asking about this. Go listen to this episode. So-and-so speaks about this at a really high level and has some good ideas. And that's how it started. But what it's turned into selfishly for me is like a personal PhD in like coaching and leadership in regards to, as you asked, what's important, right? What are some of the things that stand out? And, I was trying to fool around with some AI the other day and figure out, can I plug in all of these transcripts from these episodes and have it pull kind of like a Wordle, right? Wasn't that the software at one point? You put a bunch of words in and it would make a little picture. So anybody that's software savvy and is listening to this and you think you could help me plug all my transcripts in and pull kind of like a curriculum out of it, I would love your help. But the key things, Ed, that always come back is I don't know as much as I think I do, and I'm finally at peace being able to say that in regards to the themes that I hear, right? Relationship matters most. And the cliche of kids don't care what you know till they know that they care, whatever version of that you want, it's, how do you build relationship with both students and adults and community members that is going to transcend the however many years you have with that person. And I think that has been something that has been super important as we try to develop program here, which is how are you impacting this individual's lives in a way in which, you're not this figurehead in their life, but it's ultimately like it was important for them to participate. And we talked earlier about glue guys and culture people and how you maybe keep somebody that we wouldn't have in the past. In the last 2 years, I coached the boys basketball team. We had a guy that's riding or that's doing rodeo in college at Cal Poly. That was a football guy, and all of his teammates wanted him to play basketball, even though he never played. And it was like, coach, we want him on the team. I was like, cool. And he'll tell you he couldn't play dead, but it was like, he was probably the most important dude on that team. the entire year, from the leadership that he instilled, from how he showed up every day. And now we've got people actually saying, hey, I just want to be like a Hoosier. And it's like, you can't just be that guy because you're on the team and you're not playing. Like, there's a skill set that comes with that, and it's not for everybody. And I think that's something that I've learned as well, where I actually asked Rich off the record, Shaywitz, our friend, and when you're working on, hey, we're really good at X, but our culture's not very good. Not that Rich said that, but we've all been in that situation. And it's like, okay, well, have you ever considered just recruiting a person that's maybe not the best basketball player, but is elite at culture? And now all of a sudden, all of your basketball guys are better because this human's in the program. Yeah. And I think that's something that's come up as we've talked about. How do you leadership is influence, right? So how do you influence? How do you put the right people in an influential standpoint? And then the other thing I'll say is, like, you have to be constantly learning and questioning what you do in regards to not, hey, I shouldn't do this. Like, I've joked all the time, Ed, you know, I've talked about it, where I feel like at our age, there's a way to hack coaching, given the time restrictions that you have, given the school site you have, are you sharing athletes? Are you not? Where you can kind of systematically build an approach that you can just roll out, repeat. But the tweaks aren't even in the strategy as much. It's really about consensus building. You know, and I had somebody, one of my colleagues the other day, say, hey, you know, you're really good at deflecting X. And, you know, I told someone the other day, you're a master manipulator. And I said, I'm going to take that as a compliment. He goes, it's intended to be a compliment. And then Gene, of course, said, I wouldn't say that, but you know what you are is you're a consensus builder. And it's like, okay, so how is that a skill that we didn't have when we were younger, that I've learned through all of these conversations, that it's like, hey, think win-win. Right? It's not always a net zero game when you're trying to do something for kids, right? You may have to give a little to get a little, right? And part of this, like you said, is there's a selfish component to, I'm learning a ton of this, but you know me, in the history of our lives, it's always like, yo, can you help me with this? Absolutely. No problem. What do you need from me? Nothing. It's all good. And then you get the text from me with the Godfather card that's like, hey, someday I may call in this favor, but that day is not today, right? But it's like, it's, how can you do more? Let me backpedal. What are the resources that you have at your place, right? What's unique to your situation as a coach? And how do you navigate that space, right? Be it at Fairfield High School, be it at Stevenson, be it you're now the tennis coach and you've never done it. Whatever's unique to your situation. How do you stay in the present and drop your expectations and your comparisons? Like, that's a huge deal that I think we all get caught up at some point, and it's a road to misery, right? It's like Gus said, run your own race, because as soon as you're looking left and right, you're in this comparison game where nothing's good enough, right? Even if you're thriving. And I think all these little cliches and buzzwords, right, that come out of it, they're universal for a reason. And if you're not finding ways to ask questions of people you don't usually talk to, I think there's missed opportunities, is what I've learned, right? And so even like, you know, having people on that reach out, like, this is wild. So anybody else that's listening, like, I'll get DMs. The guy that was on last week, Anthony Romero, he's a offensive coordinator at Cabrillo College, local guy, just hit me with a DM. Hey, love what you're doing. I was like, hey, you want to come on? He's like, yep, boom. And it's like, I learned a ton from him, and he's 24 years old. Right. And he's just getting into the game. So it's like, how do you take every opportunity to learn? Right. And you know me as well. Like, I'm the guy that picks up the phone every single time, whether it's got a name on it or it's a number I don't recognize, because I've had just in the last 7 years, 10 different people call randomly just to ask for some things about guidance. I've never met them. And it's like, develop a relationship out of that. And I think those are the things where we stretch ourselves. Whereas when we first cut our teeth, it was like, yo, everybody stay away from us. Let's just like go be within our program. So that's a long rambling answer, but I think ultimately to catalog all of the things that I've heard over the years, and more importantly, for anybody that's listening that wants to just go learn something, just ping somebody that you want to talk to and ask them if you could jump on a call together and talk. The things that we talk about off the recording often are more or as valuable as what's actually recorded?
Good answer. Well done. Well done. I mean, I think it's you got to be vulnerable. Number one, right? Like you got to be willing. I appreciate you saying that you didn't know as much as you thought you did, because I think that we all have an ego to us. I mean, I think that's what makes a lot of coaches good coaches, right? Is they think they know the answers, and even when they don't, they find a way to try to sell the answer that's not right. Um, and
Well,
then
hey, on that though, let's just our relationship. So we were at the one of my other hats that I wear is also on one of the association groups as a an officer, and my job is to deal with bylaws and some things like that. And so we had a meeting, and we got to some conclusions, and then I followed up with some people that weren't at the meeting, and I'm like, yo, here's where we got. What are your thoughts on this? And it's like, conceptually, I like it, but I think you missed on this. And it's like, great, appreciate that, right? Sometimes it's good to like just ask people that aren't involved in the play, so to speak, to get their perspective on, did you do that right? And if not, what would you do differently? And that can be across any circumstance. I'm sure you've had one in the last month. Like, talk about something like that where you've had to deal with.
oh, I was just gonna say, like last night, we struggled a little bit at tournament, and the tournament host school, he's came over to thank us for coming. The stuff you do at the end of a tournament, and he said, "Can I offer an observation on your team?" 10 years ago, I'd have walked away from him. I'm not interested in what you have to say, like what I mean? And I said, "Sure." And he said, "I think you guys are really good when you do this and this." And I mean, it was something I think we knew already. You know what I mean? But just to have somebody think that that we were cordial and professional enough to offer that, I thought was awesome. And I turned to my coach and said, he just said what we said 10 minutes ago. So like there was some affirmation there. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed about being an AD too, is that when I walked in, it was, how am I going to impact others? And then it was like spending some time watching the football team practice and realizing that, hey man, I could do a better job doing this. Like I like that. Like I said, some of the relationship building things. I've got a beast of a girls basketball coach right now that might be the best basketball coach on campus, and that's that bothers me. So like, what's he doing? And we're looking at it and trying to steal some things. And so, um, being open to the idea that there's more for you to learn is really important. And I'm gonna tell you right now that, and we've talked about this before, being a parent is significant, man, because you think you have answers, and these kids will challenge you and challenge you and challenge you until you realize you don't even know what you're talking about a lot of times. You know what I mean? So, um, being willing to listen and then understand people, but then like, hey, I feel like I'm pretty competent in this or that. Go out and challenge yourself, and um, be willing to be vulnerable and recognize that there's some weaknesses. I think it's key. It's really important.
Well, I'll follow up on your parenting comment. I called both of my daughters, who are now in college at this point this year, to ask for their advice on
Yeah,
how to do something in my professional life,
yeah,
because they are recently graduated through the program and was navigating a situation with some miscommunication between player and coach. And I
yeah.
was just like, yo, Tex, give me a call when you have a chance. I need a consultation. And, it's like funny where the roles reverse, and being, like you said, vulnerable enough to what, you're 20 years old, and you're 18, and you could probably help me with this better than anybody
The
else.
perspective. Yeah, I mean, we've done that. We've done that recently within my own program, my own team. Like, hey, what are you seeing right now? What are the experiences that you're having? Because there's a little bit of a disconnect right now. I need you to educate me. And then what do you think is our best play right here? And that again, there's no chance I'd have done that 10, 12 years ago. It was my way, and you were all gonna do it that way, and right. And just evolution. And again, I think that comes from maturity and realizing that you don't know it all, and that's okay. When, like I said before, you'd have to pretend like you did, and I think that's really, really important. And I like, on our campus too, like with regards to the coaches that we have right now. I've got a really passionate young core, um, and they are really close, and they're picking each other's brains. And hey, we share the same kid. Like, what? How did you get this kid to do this? Because this kid, he won't do that for me, right? Those sort of conversations, on top of like helping each other with specific things. So that's something I'm really proud of. But I like that idea. And the thing that I think, when you talk about consensus building, I think that really comes down at the core to, what we already acknowledge, and that is, this thing is not about us. Um, it's about these kids and their experience, and how we can help them lead live better lives, right? And so that's the consensus. We're all going to agree to that. There's not a person involved that's not going to agree to that, right? So then, how do we go about that now? So, good
All right, we're
stuff.
getting long-winded here, but we're gonna go two more because I want your take on this. I've been
Yeah.
my soapbox lately has been trying to navigate what I call role confusion. And if you saw the little clip that we put out the other day, it's been something that's been popping up lately. I don't know if it's been popping up more, Ed, as much as it's like these are the paper cuts I'm currently taking, so it's like in the front of mind right now. But the hats that you wear that I'm aware of, and correct me if I'm wrong. So, teacher, head coach, athletic director, board member at the CSADA, and I don't know if there's other committees or whatever you serve on, but especially since getting back to Stevenson and being part of the residential community where you're a teacher, you're a coach, you're a resident faculty member, and you have all these points of contacts, and you're an advisor, like your hat may change based on the conversation you're having. And when it's not clear what hat you are wearing, then it can create problems for other people. And the same I feel when you get the other side of that, right? So when you are a CSADA board member, you have to think from a certain perspective of this is what's best for the whole organization. You can't be in I'm Eddie Wilson, Fairfield High basketball coach mode. Can you talk a little bit about your observations with maybe that term, maybe how you've grown to understand the importance of staying true to yourself, but also switching perspective, right, on what hat you're wearing at any given time, in order to, what I would say, avoid conflict that's unnecessary if everybody is staying in their lane. And by that, right, we tell our kids, play, ref, coach, choose, right? But yet in our professional lives, a lot of time there's stuff crossing because people can't realize that it's the same as sports. Like you're wearing a certain hat at a time when you engage in a conversation.
I think that's a great, great topic, and um, one that is difficult to navigate sometimes. So, like, I've got several anecdotal stories, but baseball coach comes and he's got an issue, and we, like, literally, this is me. Are you talking to me, the head basketball coach? Are we colleagues right now? Are you talking to me, the athletic director, where now I'm more of an authority figure? Are you talking to me as your friend? Like, it's not just me defining the role, but them defining the role for me. Um, what do you want from me right now? Because my answer as the basketball coach might be different than my answer as the athletic director. And that answer might be different than one just me as a colleague and a friend, right? So oftentimes that is my first response to my coaches. Several of my coaches on campus played for me. Are you talking to Coach Wilson, your coach right now, or are you talking to your boss? or you know what I mean? Like, and so getting them to basically tell me what hat they want me to wear sometimes is important, right? Ultimately, the hat that's most important for me on campus is going to be my athletic director camp, right? And there's times where I've had to provide maybe advice or maybe make a decision that might negatively impact me, the basketball coach, like with regards to personnel, for example. Um, a basketball player that's going to go play football, and how he's being utilized and how he's handling an injury and whatever else, right? So, okay, the athletic director thinks this and that. The basketball coach thinks you should just like remove this kid entirely, right? So there's there's different answers for different questions based on what you want from me, and that's always a challenge. I think I have those same types of experiences with my administration. When we talk, am I talking as a teacher right now, or am I that has like concerns about kids in classrooms? Are we talking about what's best for our athletes? Am I the athletic director, or am I the teacher right now? Or to your next point, am I some sort of like more important figure in the athletic director world, which I don't really think is a big deal, to be honest with you. But like, so now we're talking about policies and philosophies and things of the sort. Like, we got to look at what's best for everybody, and I think that's what you alluded to. The decision that might be made, within our section, and for I'll give you a great example: realignment. We just went through a tremendous realignment phase in our section, and our school is going to move leagues. It was the best decision for our campus, for our athletic department, to get ourselves away from some of the schools that we've been competing against that are a little bit bigger, a little bit better than us, and more established. And we just been getting pounded in a lot of sports, right? That wasn't the best move for the athletic director, because now we're traveling more. I got to figure out how to make some more money. Our gates are going to be down, right? But that was the best move for our department, right? It was not the best move for the basketball coach. We like where we're at. We typically have had some pretty good success where we are, and so now, right? So, but again, that whole process for me was what's best for the athletic department at Fairfield High School, and and it wasn't best for my admin didn't like it, and I had to fight against my own admin, right? Because they want they want the local schools, and like adding the travel, and now we were in a comfort level. We had a comfort level, and so I think that's a great question. I didn't know where you were going at first when you talked about role confusion, but a lot of us, and I think this is the world we live in right now too. And even if you think about your own sport, like, so we coach basketball, and now the big thing is like positionless basketball, right? And so like everybody does the same thing, but not really, right? We know that we need somebody that does this and somebody else who does that. But here we are, we're going to spend our entire offseason trying to make everybody the same player. So I think, and it's similar, I think, on campus with faculty and stuff, right? Like, I teach a specific subject, but you also want me to make sure I teach this core stuff, right? And like, so ultimately, like, where do we all fit? I think I think our world creates a certain climate where there's going to be role confusion, and so now me being more specific with what I want from you is really, really important, and that's what I tell my coaches all the time. I need you to tell me what you want from me, and I will do everything I can to give you that.
No, I agree. And, we've talked about this before. My kind of three pet peeves, excuse me, communication, efficiency, role definition. And I think part of that is the the tighter you can define those roles, the more you can then ask that question. Are you talking to me as a parent right now, or a colleague? Because if you're talking to me as a parent, I need you to walk back to your office and email me and make an appointment. If you're talking to me as a colleague and you have a question about the greater institution and what we're doing, like, cool, let's sit down and let's talk about it, right? Because ultimately, as soon as those roles get blended, now not only is there a chance that there's credibility loss because maybe you've stepped across the line because you have a relationship or think you do, right? Rather than respecting the fact that, like, we all have different things we've been tasked with in this world. And if we can all do our job, so to speak, then everybody wins. When I come over to Fairfield and try to be the AD for you, all of a sudden, like, I don't know what's going on at your school site. My school site's getting neglected, and we both lose. All right, let's pivot. Let's wrap up with this, Coach. Same question I've been asking. What have you most recently changed your mind on? I used to be over here, and now I'm over here, and here's why. It does not have to be sports related. It does not have to be basketball related. Just in general, as we try to learn and grow as humans.
I think, well, as we learn and grow as humans, so I don't think pizza is a fast food. And like we used to talk about, like, so I don't eat fast foods, and people say, well, you're eating pizza, and I don't think pizza is a fast food, right? And then so now I've gained a bunch of weight, and I realize, man, pizza's probably a fast food. How about that? I don't know, man. Like,
hold on. First of all, that might be the best answer I've ever gotten to that question.
You know, man, I think, and we talked about this before. Everything is evolving all the time, and so like you feel like you're stuck in this one position, or you've got this one idea. And again, I was telling you, like, at your core, I think you are who you are, right? But I'll just constantly challenged in my position. And I think it's the life that I've chosen. You know what I mean? Like I tell my coaches that you chose this life. You know, I'm challenged at work. I'm challenged at home. I've got just really bright, like, awesome kids who are not afraid to tell their dad that he's not as cool as he think he is, and whatever else, right? I'm open to constantly changing my mind. I don't have that problem. You know what I mean? I used to before, no longer. That's kind of the big thing, I think, is that I'm willing to just, like, my boy at Solana used to say to me, two things I took from him. The first one, he would always talk about flow like water. He said, flow like water. We just got to flow like water.
Bruce
right?
Lee.
And I'm like, I don't flow like water. That's not my thing. Right? Like, I'm going to direct the water where I want it to go. And so now I've learned to flow like water. The other thing that he said that has probably changed my life, honestly, is, you know, he'd always ask me, is that the rock that I wanted to hold on to? You know what I mean? Is that the one you want to hold on to? Like, do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? Right. And I used to want to be right all the time. Now I just want to be happy. And so I think when you talk about just like wholesale life changes, you know what I mean? Like, man, I'm just going to flow like water, and I'm just going to do whatever I can to be happy in whatever circumstance that is, you know? And is that work? Is that on the court? Is that at home? You know, what can we do to be happy? How can we all be happy right now?
No doubt. That's a great way to stop,
But
right?
pizza is definitely fast food, and it's not good for you if you're eating a lot of it and not caring about what your body looks like. You know what I mean?
Great place to stop. We're just gonna end with that soundbite. Thanks for being here today, Coach. It's always good catching up.
It was awesome.